Hooray! Minecraft! We've created a new server and we're going to show people how to play Minecraft, how to survive the first night. It's beautiful.
My god, it's terribly snowy.
For me, and a lot of other people, this was their introduction to Minecraft. Not an advert by Mojang or a presentation at a massive convention, but two guys talking into toaster mics about how they were going to survive their first night. In December of this year, it'll be the 10-year anniversary of the first ever episode of Shadow of Israphel. And considering most of the attention this series gets these days is based around why it ended and the mystery surrounding the elusive episode 43, I thought I'd take a bit of a different approach and instead focus on what made Shadow of Israphel so special and how it was different to anything that had been before it or anything we've had since. For those who haven't seen Shadow of Israphel, or who are a bit rusty and can't remember what it was about, I think it's important to give a rough context. The series started as nothing more than a normal Minecraft series. However, as it progressed, elements of storytelling were introduced that were mostly unknown to the two main characters, Lewis and Simon, creating a semi-improvised roleplay adventure series within the game. The first episode was released back in 2010, a few years before Minecraft became the huge phenomenon it is today. In fact, it's arguable that the Yogscast, and Shadow of Israphel in particular, played a large part in Minecraft's early popularization, which is no small thing. Anyway, in this first episode, we're introduced to our main characters, Zephos, a spaceman, played by Lewis, and Honeydew, a dwarf from the kingdom of Casmodan, played by Simon. Early episodes were clearly intended to help introduce viewers to the game and how it works. However, as with everything the Yogscast do, they weren't quite as informative as they were funny and entertaining. The duo set about mining ores, crafting items, and building themselves a base known as the Yog Cave.
I don't know, man. I like the Yog Cave. I think I'm quite warming to it.
It's like the Bat Cave, only shit.
Eventually, however, small things start to appear off, such as the sudden arrival of a strange-looking tree and a pyramid filled with lava. This is followed by Lewis and Simon constructing a nether portal, inadvertently prompting the appearance of a player neither Simon or Lewis seem to have seen before, a pale-faced man in a suit named Israphel. Initially, it's presumed Israphel is merely a random player who somehow found his way onto the server and has been trolling them without their knowledge.
Do you reckon he's got like a base, a secret base of operations somewhere?
We built like this igloo, didn't he?
However, after a couple of confrontations, the heroes decide to chase him, eventually stumbling upon an entire settlement known as Terravale, filled with strange NPCs.
Oh god, is this someone else? Oh god! He's so tired from such a long travel.
I don't like it.
The first character they meet is called Old Peculiar, who works as an innkeep in the Skeletal Arms. He is inviting, but a little weird at the same time. They're also introduced to a young blacksmith named Daisy Duke that Simon takes a liking to.
Oh, what a pretty young lady.
Oh.
I think I'm in there, Lewis.
She sets them on a quest to venture into the town's diamond mine and rid it of spiders. In return, she promises to make them armour and weapons. The heroes do so successfully, and while Daisy makes the armour, Old Peculiar mentions that the Reverend John, who works in St. Creeper's church, is in need of help. He tells them of his son, who was killed in a creeper attack 5 years ago, and shows them his house, which is in ruin. The heroes are tasked with retrieving the Reverend's Bible from the rubble, but upon venturing into the house, they're unable to find anything, instead having to deal with a dungeon full of zombies. Furthermore, things become sinister when Old Peculiar refers to the Reverend's dead son as Israphel.
Wait, what? Did you just hear that? What the innkeeper said. The Reverend's son is Israphel.
This seems off, and upon returning to the town, Daisy is missing, and the Reverend's nameplate can be seen down in the crypt. He appears to be mourning one of the graves, and when approached, the Reverend goes completely mad and attacks Simon. Lewis kills him in panic, and it's revealed that the grave he was mourning at bears the name Israphel. Lewis suggests trying to burn and salt Israphel's body to stop him appearing again, so he distracts Old Peculiar while Simon sets the grave on fire.
We didn't burn him!
However, once the wood planks are burnt away, they reveal a door beneath the grave, leading down a dark passage.
What? I don't really want to go down here.
And after venturing down, the heroes make a terrible discovery. Israphel himself has Daisy hostage on top of a large castle bordered by a moat of lava. The heroes try and rescue Daisy but are held up by two new characters, Zombie Boss and Creeper Boss, allowing Israphel to escape down another secret tunnel along with Daisy. The heroes follow suit, but to their surprise, it leads back to the original portal they created, meaning Israphel has taken Daisy into the Nether. And that's the setup to one of the greatest Minecraft series ever made. The premise being that Israphel, an evil ancient god from long ago, has captured Daisy, and it's fallen to Lewis, Simon and Old Peculiar to find a way of stopping him taking over the world, while saving Daisy and gaining other allies along the way. There's a short Survival Island series in between this and the main Shadow of Israphel adventure, but mostly all that's established there is Lewis has a strange addiction for placing torches. It's worth noting that up until this point, many viewers were still very much convinced that these other characters were merely NPCs. In retrospect, it might seem rather obvious that these are clearly other players acting out a role, but you have to remember that at the time, nothing like this had really been done before. Not to mention, people knew much less about Minecraft than they do now. On top of this, from what I've heard, Lewis and particularly Simon weren't aware of everything that had been set up for them. Therefore, their confusion seems pretty genuine when anything unexpected happens. This creates an interesting dynamic that isn't usually as authentic in things like TV series and movies, where plot points and discoveries feel almost as new to the characters as they do to the audience, making Simon and Lewis's reactions funnier because you can relate to them as a viewer. And believe me, there were plenty more discoveries to be made, as the world building for Shadow of Israphel is surprisingly detailed and creative. The best way to demonstrate this is to actually take a look around the world, which you can yourself thanks to a rebuild project that I'll link in the description. The first city Simon and Lewis are taken to is called Mistral City, home of the Sky Lords. A large part of Mistral City is found up in the sky to accommodate airships, and one of the main attractions is a large floating wizard tower inhabited by the Great Wizard Fumblemore.
I am the Great Wizard Fumblemore.
Many other great characters are also introduced in Mistral City, such as Granny Bacon, who works at the Greasy Spoon tea shop.
How about a hook for old Granny? Would you...
Oh my goodness me.
Would you like to lick me acid?
Or Father Brayburn, who works at the Church of the Holy Apple.
This whole apple business is very old-fashioned these days.
He sounds amazing.
Oh god, pulling in the punters, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, we know what you mean, Brayburn.
Plus, there's a load of little details, like if you look in the church's graveyard, it's populated by little puns and Easter eggs. If you want a location that has a grander scale, look no further than Verrigan's Hold, which not only is an impressive structure on its own, but also houses the Carnival del Banjo, run by Mr. Banjo himself, with talents such as Strongman Bruno.
You look like little Bobby.
And a fortune teller named Madame Nebescu. Other locations include the Pirates' Haven, Barbecue Bay, the Dwarven stronghold of Stoneholm, and the sprawling structure of Skyhold. These builds are all very impressive, especially when you put it in the context of 2010, when there wasn't an abundant number of tutorials and inspiration around. What really brings these locations to life in this series, though, is the characters that live in them, and the way that Simon and Lewis interact with them. Each character has so much personality, which is only enhanced by Simon's voices and impressions. A few of my favourite include Fumblemore's brother Swampy Bogbeard, Madame Nebescu that I mentioned before, and my absolute favourite, Bongo.
Hold on while I channel the energies of nature itself, man.
It's like,
Swampy, away!
Now let me mix it up with my voodoo stick.
Are you sure this voice is the right one to use? I'm starting to have second thoughts.
so am I.
Many, thank you. This map show way home. I give Dwarf big hug. Mwah. Come here. Come here. Come here, you.
That's lovely.
Ooh. Take me with you.
No, Bongo, look. Stay here for now.
I am good jump.
Oh no, Bongo!
What happened?
Oh god! He wanted to show how good a jumper he was, but...
And then he fell off.
If you've never seen Shadow of Israphel, you'd be forgiven with the clips that I've shown so far for presuming the entire series is merely a parody of fantasy adventure stories like Lord of the Rings or Game of Thrones. And you'd probably be half right. It is a comedy series at heart, but the semi-scripted nature of it leaves it in this strange middle ground. On the one hand, you've got things glitching out and Simon and Lewis messing up at key parts, but on the other hand, you have genuine moments of high production value, such as certain flashback sequences, plot lines, and most notably the soundtrack by Daniel Yaunt, which wouldn't seem out of place in a Hollywood blockbuster. There are 2 whole albums worth of soundtrack to this series, with standout songs such as Hurricane of Adventure and For Glory. When you're watching Shadow of Israphel, you're in this weird state where you're invested in the story and characters while simultaneously being able to laugh along with Lewis and Simon as they pick the story apart. It's like you're completely invested in a plot, but also self-aware about how ridiculous it is. This unique tone means you can have things like outtakes left in because the viewer knows the whole thing is an act, but there's also room for long sections of actual narrative as well. It's a golden ratio between a TV series like drama and the relatability of a half-assed homemade YouTube video. You'd expect it to be impossible to keep viewers engaged with a storyline that's constantly mocked, broken, and made fun of throughout, but somehow they pull it off. Furthermore, this tone goes perfectly with the Yogscast's usual antics, and allows them to do what they're good at, random improvisation which provides some of the best moments in the adventure, the most famous example being Simon's Diggy Diggy Hole song, which turned into a whole anthem in itself.
Simon, I feel like we need the song to sing whilst digging.
It needs to be something funny and sort of light-hearted, doesn't it?
Upbeat.
I'm a dwarf and I'm digging a hole. Diggy diggy hole.
If there hadn't been a format where both Simon and Lewis could wander completely off script, things like that never would have happened. The whole charm of this series comes from Lewis and Simon attempting to fumble through this dark, complicated story they've had thrust upon them. It's like if in Lord of the Rings, Aragorn and Legolas were just completely inept. It's a testament to the appeal of the Simon and Lewis dynamic that some people are still holding out for a continuation of the series to this day, even if it's been said many times that it's never coming back. I don't really know where I sit on Shadow of Israphel's return. On the one hand, I would love it if the series was eventually given the ending I think it deserves, but alternatively, I can completely understand why the Yogscast don't want to revisit it. I don't think anyone is 100% sure as to why the series was stopped at episode 42, possibly down to burnout, and I've seen people say that a corrupted save file was the straw that broke the camel's back. Realistically, I think the job of having to resume the series to the same standard is just too much pressure, and with the expectation weighing behind its return, it would be unfair to burden anyone with that sort of task. Having said that though, I'm now going to be a complete hypocrite because this is the part of the video where I tell you how I would have done it. Okay, so here's the thing. We want to give Shadow of Israphel an ending, but we don't want it to be too much effort, and we don't necessarily have the drive or passion to do more than a few episodes. I'm gonna have to give some context of what happens in previous episodes here, so if you're at all bothered about spoilers, you can either skip to this time code, or you could just click off the video now. So, up to this point, the heroes have been travelling with Skylord Lysander and Old Peculiar, finding out about the mystery of Israphel, and also the sands that threaten to smother the world. The heroes have travelled to several different locations in search of a map which would help them save the world. The map takes them out into the sands and they discover a large robotic hand. After travelling within the hand, they come to the conclusion that Israphel's not working with the sands, but is attempting to move them, releasing an army of large war machines that are trapped beneath. During the heroes' venture through the arm of the machine, they find a series of minecart tracks. However, while riding the rails, Old Peculiar becomes cut off from Simon and Lewis and plummets to death in a pit of radioactive lava. The heroes are lost without their companion, but stumble upon a strange walled garden that has completely run dry. In the most recent episode, they find Swampy within this walled garden, and help him regenerate the garden using his magic. So now that we're up to speed, here's how I would continue it. So I would have it that Swampy's magic was far more powerful than initially expected, and when Simon and Lewis venture back outside the walls of the garden, they find the surrounding area has also been regenerated into a dense jungle. They'll then find Um Bongo, who was previously thought to have been dead, but he explains to them that he survived his fall from Skyhold and ended up here, mistaking the newly regenerated forest for his homeland. Bongo also explains that as he was travelling through the jungle, he came into contact with a large metal man. Bongo leads the heroes to a clearing, which turns out to be where the hand previously resided. Now, however, a full head and shoulders can be seen poking out of the ground. Although we've only heard bad things about the machines trapped beneath the sand so far, the robot appears to be friendly and has no idea where it is. The heroes talk to the robot and slowly uncover small pieces of information about its past. However, just as they seem to be getting somewhere, Israphel appears with his two goons, Zombie Boss and Creeper Boss. Maybe you could even have like Skeleton Boss or Spider Boss or something, who knows. Anyway, upon Israphel's appearance, the robot's eyes suddenly go red and it turns evil. The heroes put up a fight, but eventually have to make a retreat, and they run into Mr. Banjo and the other carnival folk, who give them a lift back to Icaria. For those who don't know, many of the companions Simon and Lewis have made along the way have made mention of a city called Icaria.
If you see my brother, tell him I will be sailing to Icaria. He has my sword for when the final battle comes.
So it seems they might have been building up to an epic fight in Ikaria with the whole cast of characters, and that's exactly what you would get here. With the imminent threat of Israphel and his cult on the back of a giant world-destroying robot, Lysander takes it upon himself to organise an army made of all the characters that have been in the series so far. You could have Isabel Peculiar, Pirate Tin Man and Shiplord Hubert form a navy, Skylord Jasper and Lysander could fly the Skyhold, and then on the ground could be Fumblemore, Swampy, Spacker, Moira, the Carnival Folk, Bongo and Father Brayburn. You would then have a large battle with some epic music and big cutscenes, and eventually Israphel would be defeated and the robot destroyed. Inside the robot would be a portal which leads to a room where Daisy seems to have been imprisoned. She's lying in a bed and looks ill beyond recovery. The heroes tell her about Old Peculiar, and sadly she dies, but then you could have a short scene of her and Old Peculiar together in Minecraft heaven or something, and it would be a real tear-jerking moment, you know? The series could then end with Simon and Lewis returning to the Yog Cave and rebuilding it in a montage. Then, as they're wrapping up and reminiscing, Simon could accidentally set fire to the Yog Cave again, and we're finished. So there you go. I don't know if it's a great ending, but it's the best I could come up with. As I said before, I think it's very unlikely the series will ever be revisited, and that's completely fair enough. But don't let that put you off watching it again, or even rewatching it if you saw it all those years ago. The coordination of all these different people logged in, acting out different roles, must have been a difficult task. To then present that in a home video YouTube style, all while retaining a coherent and absorbing plot, is a pretty impressive achievement in my opinion. Add in the cozy humour, funny impressions, and just general shithousery of Lewis and Simon of the Yogscast, and it's no wonder that Shadow of Israphel is like nothing else on YouTube. Thanks for watching everyone, make sure you go and watch Shadow of Israphel again, you'll enjoy it, trust me. Please subscribe, otherwise you'll be blown up by a creeper. Okay, goodbye.